There is perhaps no greater loss of potential in semi-recent gaming history than the Spore franchise, which never was. There's nothing else out there like what Maxis was trying to create with Spore, a game where you create an entire civilization from the emergence of its first single-celled organisms to its domination of the universe. A game where you can customize every last detail of your world. A game that combines about 5 genres into one, and it comes so close to doing it well. At the time of its release, I would say that despite its flaws, Spore was a good game. Not perfect, but a solid effort from EA that had the misfortune of aging poorly as the years rolled on. But it could have been a phenomenal game if things had just gone a little fucking differently. And its sequels could have been even better, had they only been made. So let's talk about that. Spore is divided into 5 segments: the cell stage, the creature stage, the tribal stage, the civilization stage, and the space stage. As stated by the developers, these stages were crafted with a powers of 10 mindset, which is to say that each stage was meant to feel 10 times larger than the one that came prior. Each one of these stages essentially functions as its own game. However, the cell stage only takes about 10 minutes to beat and is little more than a glorified intro to the rest of the game. You can evolve your creature by eating chunks of cell meat or cell plants, and then having single-celled organism sex with your single-celled organism girlfriend, and in doing so find intuitive solutions to your problems. Having trouble outrunning the bigger fish or cells? Easy, just add more fins to make yourself faster. Having trouble finding food? Easy, give yourself 2 different sets of mouths so you can eat every type of food you encounter. Getting attacked from behind? Easy, just add a spike to your ass. This stage, short as it is, rewards ingenuity and creativity in your creature's design, setting the stage for what's to come. However, Spore only begins properly once you take that first step onto land and say to yourself, wait, this is an action-adventure game now? There are 2 ways you can go about playing this stage. Either assert dominance by killing all your neighbors, or befriend them by beating them all in a dance party. And try not to get killed by the scary big creatures that have 10 times your health. Oh shit, guys, this is the Germans. The Germans are here. It's over, pack it up, guys. No Lebensraum. The further you progress, the larger your brain becomes until eventually you gain the mental fortitude required to reference 2001: A Space Odyssey. This kicks off the next phase of the game, the tribal stage. No longer are you restricted to controlling only one guy. Now you can control an entire tribe of them at the same time. Whereas on the prior stage you had to collect DNA points to evolve, on the tribal stage you collect food to spend it on babies and buildings. I never knew. This stage ends when you achieve dominance over all rival tribes on your continent. Like before, there are 2 ways you can do this. You can aim for pacifism, which entails making everyone like you by playing didgeridoo for them. Or conquest, which is self-explanatory. Based on how you play this stage, your people will either become capitalists, religious zealots, or insane warmongers. Hey, who said you can't be all 3 things at once? This leads into the civilization stage, in which you must convert everybody else to your superior ideology. You can conquer them economically, militaristically, or by enlightening them to the one true religion. Also on this stage, your people finally establish a system of currency, but the real money lies in harvesting spice. Controlling spice gives you money which you can spend on troops to trade with or attack other cities, and you pretty much get the idea. It's an oversimplified version of Civ. And then you make it to the space stage, which is essentially the real game. This stage is far more developed than any of the others, and it'll soak up most of your playtime. Your goal? To expand your empire across the stars, and eventually to make it to the center of the galaxy where ancient secrets of the cosmos lie hidden. Every decision you've made up to this point will shape how your species turns out. This alters not only how they look, but how they act and what paths are open to you as a player. Will you conquer the galaxy or purchase it? Or neither? Sky's the limit. Except it's not. Plus, this game has an online feature, meaning that you can encounter and interact with other people's creatures and cities. The community really took this creature creator and ran with it. You can find pretty much anything you could imagine on the game's server, and perhaps even things you never would have imagined. I don't think many people would disagree with me when I say that the creature creator, aided by its intuitive design, is this game's biggest success. I cannot stress enough how creative and ahead of its time this idea for a game was. Even today, no game can really compare to its sheer level of ambition. Sure, we've gotten some games here and there that are similar to one of Spore's 5 stages, like Stellaris, which in many ways is just a more fleshed out version of Spore's Space Stage, though it's made by Paradox Interactive, which is probably the one company that's actually more greedy with its DLCs than EA.
Give me money. Money me. Money now.
But regardless, there are no games I can think of that are similar to all of Spore's stages at once. Spore still stands alone, one of a kind. As of now, it has no spiritual successor, and I think that's a terrible shame because, God knows, Spore could do with a few improvements here and there. Immediately upon revisiting the game, I thought to myself how empty the creature stage feels compared to how I remembered it. Most of its memorability comes from its charm and its flashiness. Sometimes when you're in the middle of play, a random spaceship will pull up and abduct someone, and it's things like that that really do go a long way. But the gameplay is almost non-existent. You basically just walk around and press buttons on the other animals. The decision you get to make is whether you press the green button or the red button. Even combat amounts to little more than just spamming a button and hoping that your attacks are stronger than those of your foe. Be cool if there was like a button you could press at the right time to block attacks or like something. And I'm not trying to be overly cynical here. Obviously there is some degree of strategy to it. Your performance will be based upon your creature's stats, which are determined by its parts, but the creature creator isn't nearly complex enough to make this phase of the game feel as fleshed out as I think it should. The core mechanic of this phase, like the cell stage, is evolution. You upgrade your creature to better be suited for what lies ahead of you, but unlike on the cell stage, you're not encouraged to be strategic with how you design your creature. For reference, on the cell stage, the specific placement of parts will affect how you play the game. The way you design your creature isn't just aesthetic, it has to be tactical. But on the creature stage, it doesn't matter at all where you put anything. It won't affect how your creature fights or interacts with others at all. All you're actually incentivized to do is replace the worst parts with better parts as you unlock them. I think this creature designer really could have benefited from a little bit more complexity. What if the amount of legs on your creature increased its running speed, or the amount of arms on it changed its fighting style? What if adding a stinger to your creature's tail meant you could attack while facing the other way, or have a cool spinning attack? What if the limbs had actual weight to them, meaning you had to be mindful as to where you placed them, as opposed to how it is in the actual game where you can put all of a creature's limbs on one side of it and it won't get weighed down? Why not integrate certain mechanics like sneak into how you design your creature? Like if you made your creature a similar hue to its surroundings, maybe that would give it the ability to camouflage, making it easier to sneak up on prey. Why does the way your creature actually looks have no bearing on the gameplay in an evolution simulator? I think that's the core of the problem here. Spore never really lives up to its reputation as an evolution simulator because it isn't really one. Think about what evolution actually is in a nature setting. It's survival of the fittest. Over a long period of time, a species takes on certain characteristics out of necessity, characteristics that are determined by its surroundings. Sure, you change your creature, but at the end of the day, the way it looks is entirely determined by you and what you as its intelligent creator want it to look like. You are God, and your word goes. Because of that, Spore is arguably closer to being a game about creationism. Again, that's fine, I'm not against a sandbox mode that allows you to design any kind of creature you want, but I don't think that's all we should have gotten. The base game should have actually taken your creature's design into account and forced you to think more strategically about what changes to make. These are just some of the things that I think could have made the creature stage feel a lot more rewarding with each evolutionary cycle. By the way, if you're unlucky, the game will spawn your nest in the middle of the ocean, and every time you try to walk onto land, you will immediately die, effectively soft-locking your save file. That's the first of many game-breaking glitches that we're going to talk about. But for all the issues that plague the creature stage, at least you automatically respawn when you die without losing any progress. The same cannot be said for the tribal stage. From this point on, if you die, you'll have to load your most recent save, so try not to die. I think this is the least well-liked of the 5 stages, and for good reason. It can be very unfair. Sometimes 2 tribes will attack you at once, and it's very, very difficult to defend yourself, and in some cases impossible, and you will just die. The stage is fairly unbalanced as well. It's clearly easier to play as a pacifist than a conqueror, as all you have to do is make instruments, pop out some babies to play them, and then go play them. Oh yeah, and on the topic of making babies, there's a glitch that allows you to pop out infinite babies for free by changing the graphics settings while the egg is partway through its hatching animation. This will reset the animation and spawn a new egg free of charge. You can do this infinitely. This was never patched out because EA didn't feel like it. They were having a long day, okay? The Civ stage feels a little more fleshed out for sure, but the gameplay can still be diffuse. Unsurprisingly, it's far easier to play as a merchant than a warlord. Also, when playing on a high difficulty, if you don't act fast at the beginning and your opponents grow too strong, you may end up locked into a stalemate that's pretty much unwinnable. Now, this wouldn't be a huge problem if you could reload older saves, but for some reason, the game doesn't let you do that. So if you make the mistake of saving the game right before an enemy tribe or civilization pulls up out of nowhere and takes your capital, the game will automatically load your most recent save, and should that save be too close to your death to do anything about it, you'll get locked into an endless loop of defeat, effectively bricking your game. Memories came flooding back to me of having to abandon my planet and start a new save file as a kid because I got locked into a death loop on the civilization stage. I wasn't planning on taking any chances this time around, especially since I was playing on hard, so I tracked down where the save files are stored on my computer and manually backed them up pretty much every stage. And believe me, this came in handy. How could they make such an obvious design error? I know this game is old, but it's not that old. They would have had to have known it was possible to end up with an unwinnable save point, right? Was it a design choice? Why would you ever want that in your game? It's such a shame too, because there are a lot of things I like about the design of the Civ stage. Not the tribal stage though, that one can suck my dick. When I was a kid, the Civ stage was my first experience playing a strategy-based war game, other than Risk, I guess, and I loved it, despite the frustration of having to abandon my planet and start anew. It's what got me into Sid Meier's Civilization, which is now one of my favorite games, but revisiting it all these years later, its flaws become a lot more apparent. And then we get to the space stage, the meat of Spore. The best stage for sure, but is it good? Well, parts of it definitely are. I definitely enjoy terraforming to an extent, and it's always fun to, ravage the home worlds of dissenters. These guys keep pillaging my planets. Sure would be a shame if someone showed up and oops, dropped my gravitation wave. It's okay guys, I got you. But like all the other stages, there are some unfortunate fatal flaws in its design. The whole stage is built around making money so you can purchase upgrades and better weapons or buy the favor of surrounding civilizations, and the way you do this is by trading spice. Only problem is that the spice your colonies produce doesn't automatically get deposited into your inventory. Instead, you have to painstakingly fly to each and every one of your planets one by one to pick up its spice, which isn't a problem early in the stage when you only have a few planets, but later on when you've colonized entire galaxies, it's not fun, and it gets tedious very quickly even if you only stop at the planets that produce the most spice, assuming that you can remember which ones they are. To be fair, this ceases to be as much of an issue when you discover the actual strategy to the space stage, which is to find planets with purple spice, the most valuable type, and spam down as many cities and storage units onto them as you can. And once you have a reliable, steady flow of purple spice coming your way, you can pretty much just ignore every other planet you encounter for the rest of the game because they don't matter anymore. Then there's the final segment of the game where you have to get past the dreaded Groks in order to see what's at the center of the galaxy, which is possibly the most frustrating segment of any game ever. Basically, you have to navigate an invisible maze full of dead ends you can't see while you're constantly being shot at. I don't know if I got unlucky or what, but I spent almost an hour trying to find the path that led to the center of the galaxy. I died over and over and over again until I eventually found it, and then died the second before I entered the wormhole to the end of the game. Fucking finally. Oh my god. Did I just make it in? What the fuck? Are you serious? I got the achievement for getting into the wormhole, but I didn't actually get in, guys. Alright, that's cool. Unfortunately, this stage has another fatal game-breaking flaw. The crashes. They come when you least expect them, and usually when you haven't saved for a long time. Oh, and did I mention this game doesn't have an autosave feature? Unlike on the prior 2 stages where saving can be a death sentence, here you better make a habit of doing it every 5 minutes, cause you never know when the glitch gremlin's gonna strike. And speaking of glitches in general, they're also a huge problem on this stage. Oh. There it goes. That's not coming back. I cannot leave. I cannot leave the planet until the colony reaches the ground, but it will never reach the ground because it's flying through the stratosphere at 1,000 miles per hour, so I'm just stuck here, I guess. Multiple times I got trapped on a planet due to some glitch, and since the game doesn't let you save when you're on a planet, I had to exit without saving and lose a bunch of progress. Spore, I love ya, but sometimes I think you were designed in a lab to test the limits of human patience. Beyond even these obvious design flaws, there are some more underlying parts of Spore that have puzzled me since pretty much the first time I played it. When playing this game as a kid, I remember thinking to myself, why do you lose the ability to freely walk around after the creature stage? They took the time to create an entire framework for how your creature controls, moves, fights, and interacts with its surroundings, and then they only used it for a fifth of their game, if even that. It's like the entire first act of the game is dedicated to designing a creature, and then that design doesn't actually matter at all once you pass a certain point, which is quite lame. While playing the space stage, I remember yearning for the ability to get out of my ship and walk around freely on the surface of foreign planets, but I couldn't. Okay, to be fair, technically after playing the stage for a while, you do gain the ability to beam down a giant hologram version of yourself to a planet's surface. But it's lame. You move at a snail's pace and you can't interact with anyone or anything. All you can do is walk around awkwardly for a bit and then beam back up to your ship. It feels less like a mechanic of the game and more like an afterthought. I want to go on a space adventure, damn it. I want to fight rival aliens and collect specimens and shit. And again, you could very well beat the entire game without ever knowing about this ability, as I did for my first time, because it requires so much playtime to unlock. And yes, I know about that one DLC pack. We'll get there in a bit, just hold your horses. The fact of the matter is, by the time the space stage rolls around, you've actively lost the ability to use the majority of mechanics the game previously taught you. For example, on the civilization stage, you gain the ability to command armies consisting of various types of troops. You also get to design these troops yourself, meaning you can choose whether you want to prioritize defense, offense, or speed. This means you can be strategic about how you attack cities. Do you want to charge in guns blazing, or attack with slow and powerful tanks? Coastal cities are obviously more vulnerable to boats, but planes are far better at dealing with cities that are already well defended. Dropping a bomb right before your attack can make it easier to capture a city, but you could alternatively use that bomb to wipe out a large section of your enemy's troops. Sure, compared to something like Sid Meier's Civilization, it's pretty basic, but I think it's just fleshed out enough that it can still be enjoyable to people who enjoy strategy games, especially if you play it on the highest difficulty. Actually, only if you play it on the highest difficulty, it's way too easy otherwise. Then on the space stage, all of this gets chucked in the bin, and you capture cities by flying over them and then spam clicking them a bunch. In general, I always found it bizarre that on the final stage of the game, your empire has no army. Like, talk about ludonarrative dissonance. I'm supposed to believe that my civilization is the most powerful in the universe, and yet I've literally been the only one expanding our empire single-handedly. Where is everyone else? It is possible to bring some allies to tag along with you when you're attacking a city or defending one of your own, but it has to be a ship from a different civilization, and they tend to die pretty quickly once you get into tough combat. Why not preserve the system of combat from the game's previous stage? Why not have it so players can deploy troops onto a planet which will attack cities for them? Why give players a little taste of a fleshed out combat system, but then scrap it when they progress to the next section of the game? This all underlines my main criticism of Spore, one which has been lingering in the back of my mind since I was a child, even if back then I suppressed it by choosing to only see the game's positives. Why do the game stages feel so separated? Why give players abilities and then strip them away? I know the whole pitch of Spore was that it was like 5 different games in one, but when it comes down to it, taken on its own, each one of these stages is just a watered-down version of other better games in its genre. Spore doesn't really feel like 5 different games combined into one, it feels like playing 5 different games sequentially. Wouldn't it feel more cohesive if you only ever gained abilities as the game progressed? Imagine if there was a way to freely walk around during each and every stage. If you could still send delegations to your neighbors on the civilization stage the way you can on the tribal one. If you could still command trading vehicles on the space stage like you can on the civilization one, eliminating the need to stop at every single planet you've colonized one by one just to pick up your spice. Let's compare Spore to No Man's Sky for a minute. That game starts out similarly, minus the cell stage, in that you control a character who explores an alien planet and interacts with its wildlife. However, over the next few hours of gameplay, you'll unlock all kinds of new abilities that'll change the way you can play the game, like the ability to blast off into space and explore other planets, the ability to trade with and take missions from other civilizations, the ability to have dogfights with space pirates, and this is all sounding a little bit familiar, isn't it? No Man's Sky feels like a seamless combination of Spore's creature stage and its space stage. Unlike Spore, nothing gets taken away from you as you progress. You only gain new abilities and methods of exploration. That's not to say that No Man's Sky is the exact same type of game as Spore, because it's not, but I think it does serve as an indicator of a mere fraction of what Spore could have been. And when I say that, I'm fully aware that Spore came out in 2008. It could never have reached the same scale of No Man's Sky, but even so, with some significant tweaks to its design, I think it could have felt just as, if not more, exciting, especially for its time. And if EA had gone ahead with the game's potential sequels, well, we'll never know just how big the world of Spore could have gotten. You know that video you just watched? Well, guess what? It was actually a snippet from a larger video that you can watch here, if you have the time. I mean, I guess it's up to you. I would recommend you watch it, but you know, it's your call. I mean, I don't have time to wait on you anyways. I got birds to feed. But please watch it.